Good evening. I have a few minutes left before that last but one video is uploaded. I'm continuing with Coleman Cuts the Mustard. Coronavirus. Where is the science behind social distancing? This is important for all of us to understand the science behind social distancing, but they've even got that wrong. This is will not be as long as the other ones because it's only on this that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all the other subjects, just the social distancing. The theory behind social distancing is that it will protect people from other folk who sneeze or cough. The lunatics who are currently running the asylum say that we will have to maintain social distancing forever. As I said earlier, distrust the government, avoid mass media, fight the lies. So forever is a very long time. Really? That is what they have been saying. But there is not any real science to it. In some countries, people have to keep 3 feet apart. In other countries, they must keep 4.5 feet apart. In Britain, adults and children are told they must keep 6 feet apart. The latest rule in Britain is that 2 people can meet 1 person, but 1 person cannot meet 2 people. I have thought about that a lot, and I don't think I am completely potty, said Dr. Vernon Coleman. Not just yet. I cannot get my head round it. 2 people can meet 1 person, but 1 person cannot meet 2 people. That is the law, their law, and it is quite possibly the most completely stupid piece of advice ever given to anyone anywhere. But if you break the law, you can be fined. I have no idea how much. I am still too busy trying to work out how the law works to care what the fine is. There is no uniformity to the rules between countries because they are just made up by the people who think they are a good idea. Our lives are being regulated and destroyed by rules which somebody somewhere thought were a good idea. Forcing us to stay in our homes is also something that was just made up, and it is pretty clear that the authorities, the people who dreamt up the rules and who insist that we follow them, do not bother to take much notice of them themselves. I have lost count of the number of senior public figures who have been caught flouting the rules. They always have a good excuse, of course, but then we all have good excuses for flouting the rules. Am I the only one to have noticed that the police do not seem to think that social distancing rules apply to them when they are out hunting for people who are sunbathing or sitting on park benches, and when the police attend demonstrations against the lockdown, they completely ignore the social distancing rules, standing close to one another and then getting very hands-on with demonstrators like they did on the 26th of September 2020 in Trafalgar Square. There was no social distancing between them and their legions of police that charged in and dispersed people in a violent manner. The police were certainly breaking the social distancing laws when they arrested people that day and other days, and any time they arrest them, they're breaking the social distancing rules constantly. And as they stand together, they've only just met up, they're not in any bubble. So why should the police not arrest themselves? Or maybe the demonstrators could arrest the police for breaking the social distancing laws. Apart from the massive social and economic implications, there is, of course, one big problem with the social distancing rules. A sneeze does not stop at 3 or 4.5 feet or 6 feet, and nor does a cough. A cough can spread droplets for 18 feet, and a sneeze can travel 24 feet. So these social distancing rules are arbitrary and utterly pointless. If we were going to have effective social distancing, then we would all have to keep at least 24 feet apart, preferably 30 feet apart. But that would bring the world to a complete standstill. Everyone would go bankrupt, no one would ever be able to buy any food, and we would all starve to death. Cars will have to be huge if everyone has to be 30 feet from everyone else. So they made up these lower figures. And even these figures are destroying lives and will destroy businesses and everything which makes our world good. Social distancing forces friends to shout to one another and prevents grannies hugging their grandkids. Social distancing makes people fearful. It breeds distrust, suspicion, and even hatred. Passers-by step to one side and walk on the road if they see someone coming towards them. Social distancing will prevent meetings and demonstrations, but it didn't work with this, did it? It is difficult to think of a business which won't be adversely affected by social distancing. Restaurants are told they will have to throw out 3/4 of their tables and then try to make a profit. How many waiters can serve food from 6 feet away? A bowl of tomato soup will cost £200. Airlines have been told that they have to throw out 1/3 of their seats, and airline bosses have pointed out that if they do that, then they will never be able to fly again. Hairdressers will need to use scissors that are 2 yards long. I'm a hairdresser, well, was. You couldn't do it. Sports arenas can only seat people if they have 6 feet of space all around them. Cinemas and theatres will have to close off most of their seating and either close or charge a fortune for their seats. Hotels are doomed by social distancing. Can you imagine trying to get back to your room after breakfast? I'm afraid there is 1 hour queue for the lift, sir. We're not only allowed to put 2 people into one lift, and when sharing a lift, you must both face the walls. Oh dear. Sorry, I'm having trouble turning the page here. Excuse me, I'm just not so good at turning the page. I sense that the people who made up the social distancing rules are beginning to weaken. The sensible solution is to push our so-called leaders into forgetting about social distancing laws. When they know that we don't believe their lies, and that we do know what is going on and how they are trying to take over our lives with their power-grabbing emergency legislation, then they will back off. They want to stay in power, and if we shout long enough, loud enough and hard enough, then they will listen. We need to encourage old-fashioned good manners, to encourage everyone to cover their mouths and noses if they sneeze or cough. That will protect us all against all the diseases which can be transmitted this way. If we do these simple things, we can go back to living ordinary lives. We can eat out, watch live sports, and talk to people we meet without having to shout at them. If we must have laws to control our behaviour, then introduce a law which says that if you don't cover your mouth and nose when you sneeze, then you will be punished. And if we must have a punishment for breaking the law, bring back the stocks that were popular in England a few hundred years ago. People who don't cover their mouths and noses will be sentenced to 24 hours in the stocks, where the rest of us can stand and throw rotten fruit and vegetables at them. Oh, and tell the local authorities to install more public loos with decent hand washing facilities. One of the most insane things done during the last few weeks has been to close public loos in the UK. The people who decided to do that should be put in the stocks too. That's the end of that section. Thank you for listening, and the next one is the patients who've been betrayed. Look forward to seeing you then.